Guys, Eric here with another video, continuing on from the last video of belief as a tool to use in our pursuit of whatever we want, in terms of what we perceive as good is where we want to go with our life in terms of our purpose. Okay, so when we think about the brain, there's kind of like three brains. There's like the super primal, drives, just survival stuff, right? Fight or flight, freeze kind of stuff, that kind of brain. Now that one's the most powerful because it's been around for the longest time. Okay. Now we have the second brain, right? Which is pretty emotional. Now this is all, when I'm talking about these brains, is pretty like, watered down version of neuroscience. So if you really wanted to, you could check out books on neuroscience and kind of the studies involved and what these different areas of the brains do or have tendencies of doing together. But it's incredibly complex in terms of, when you read all the literature on it, it's just crazy. A lot of the scientists don't even know how this stuff fits together or what some of these impulses mean. Which is cool, but this is kind of what we have so far. So the emotional brain. Then we have the neocortex, which is about logical thought, abstract thinking, but also inhibitions of the other two brains, right? Using logic and reason to inhibit the responses and impulses of the other two brains. Okay, so that's just a general outline, crash course on the brain, okay? Now, when we have an emotion, it might be from the primal brain, but definitely is from the second layer, right? Where you have all the emotions, you have this, you have that. Now we have emotions for a reason, right? They wouldn't have evolved in such a way where they were useless. If emotions were useful, they were selected for. The impulse, anger, disgust, fear, anxiety, joy, happiness. If you want to say pleasure, pain, I don't know if those are probably not emotions, but kind of fits in those lines of sensations and feelings, right? Sensations and feelings. So using logic and abstract thought to negate something, because like when we think about the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, the conscious mind probably represents, in terms of power, right? In terms of power, it's not that strong, just because the fact that it's so new and the other brains have been around for a long time because they were successful at keeping us alive, keeping animals alive. It's pretty successful strategy, okay? So if we think of the conscious mind, do you think the conscious mind is more powerful than the subconscious? Well, the subconscious is all about automation, and that it's basically like we can make quick decisions without thinking and make associations between things so that we can spend less energy and get the most end out of our environment or whatever we're dealing with, right? That's why when you practice in the practice room, you get better over time, and slowly but surely you gain unconscious competence over your instrument or over the skill set that you're trying to acquire. You don't realize that you're able to play a scale much faster than you used to a couple years ago, but the thing is that your brain is wiring to not only insulate the mental connections, but also increase the power and the speed of the actual impulse itself, right? Which is cool. Now, when we're thinking about emotions, if we want to get past our fear, well, first of all, we have to know that the result of getting past our fear is actually worth it. So then we do our due diligence. We investigate it, and then we find that it is. Great. Then we find people who have exemplified that behavior, who have actually done it, and then we synthesize the principles of their success, because some people, say, oh, this is great, and then, it was just a fluke. Right? Maybe, sometimes that works. But, if we synthesize like a group of people that we really admire and respect, synthesize some principles down, and find things that we really like that they've all done to be successful, then we can kind of find a more causal relationship, and maybe instead of a correlated one. Correlation is good. It just doesn't mean that, if you invest all your time in just a correlated relationship, there's no guarantees. But if you invest it in a causal relationship of this, then getting that, you won't be wasting your time. Now that's great. Now you have all this all this thought, all this logic going into this, and then you find that this is what you want. This is good. Now what? Well, everything in our entire lives, like we said in the previous video, is based on your personal experience of and awareness of. Well, maybe not, because your subconscious programs things, right? But your entire experience documented, right? Now, if you have a result and behavior that gets that result that doesn't match anything you've done in your entire life, your body's going to say, wow, that's really nice thoughts you have there, but if this fails, you'll kill us, right? Fear is there to protect you, okay? Fear is there to make sure you don't make a decision that ends up destroying everything. Because, it's only in the last couple thousand years that if you make a decision, that was basically it. Like, if you made a decision to change things, that might have resulted in death. It's only until recently that, I'm making a decision to change my career. How often does that result in death? Unless it's like a high-risk job or something like that. It's really low, right? But there's a lot of fear and anxiety associated with it, just because that was our programming, for millions of years. That was genetics, right? That was, or just, life, But now it's not. So now that we know that something is good, that we want it, that we desire it, that it exemplifies what we want, how do we get past that fear? How do we destroy that fear? Well, the answer, because like if you pursue firsthand knowledge and experience and action of it, that'll work sometimes, right? Because then you'll realize through firsthand experience that the fear is BS. Through firsthand experience, you'll know that, hey, because you're building evidence, you're building a case for the new belief, the new belief tool, right? You're building, and then you have all this evidence, and you're like, this invalidates everything, and I also got more benefit than before. So logically, it becomes easier and easier the more you do it to keep doing it and building that foundation, building that structure of evidence to facilitate and build the new belief system, the new tool to help you survive better. That's a great way, okay? Now, imagine if the impulse of fear is so strong that every day it's a fight. It sucks so much. How can we at least get to a point where we no longer have this inhibiting, crushing fear of something, so that we can actually go out there and physically experience it and then destroy it like that? Because these work in combination, right? They work in combination. So how can we do that? Well, the brain cannot tell the difference between physical reality and what we visualize. Okay? If you look at the studies of basketball, there was a control group that didn't practice, control group that practiced every day for 30 days, and another group that only visualized practicing shooting hoops for 30 days. And they found out that the people that were doing it were incredibly, improved. And then the people that visualized were right there. Right there. I don't know what percentage that was. That wasn't very specific, but they showed improvement too, just by visualizing. Just by visualizing how it felt, how it looked, and judging, using their mind in creative ways, using the most powerful tool since we had when we were kids, our imagination. Because we've all had those experiences when we were in elementary school, right? And the best part of our day was going out to recess to play with our friends, and so we would go out. We'd go out in this open space or whatever, and we'd be, maybe playing a role-playing game or doing some sort of thing and developing a story. Now, 2 minutes in, you knew that you were playing with your friends. You knew that you were on the recess. You only knew, and you were, maybe looking at the time, hoping that the teacher's aide doesn't call time too early. Lets everybody do whatever. And then at a minute 30 seconds, right after that, you are literally hunting a dragon. You are literally, that stick in your hand is literally a sword that you are going to save somebody or go on an adventure with your friends. You are literally the character that uh, you chose at the beginning, or you're continuing the quest and the story and you're doing all that stuff, and maybe you have some new people come in and some other characters and all that stuff. You were actually doing that. You had these thoughts, you had this visualizations, you had an idea of what the story arc was, you had a visualization of where you were at and the location, you had the whole thing when you were little. When you were little. We've all been little kids. We've all had our imaginations. We've all thought of games and stuff where we had to think and build a world in our head. Now, the mind could not tell the difference between reality and that story. Okay? So, if we wanted to get rid of a fear, now a fear is just, protecting you, right? But it's supposed to be something that we don't like so that we go away from it, that we run away from it, right? It's it's like a moving away system, right? So what we can do is that we can use our imagination in creative ways to destroy the connection and meaning between the stimulus, the information, and then getting the fear response. Because we already know that belief or that tool we don't want anymore, that we don't want. Okay? So how do we do that? Well, chances are when you feel afraid, there's a particular part on your body that associates with that feeling. So, using our imagination, we're going to pretend, okay, like we were kids back in the day, we're going to take our hand, we're going to take that feeling, pull it out, and put it in our hand. The fear isn't here anymore, it's there. Then you look at it. You maybe make it bigger, make it smaller, you turn it to, you turn the brightness all the way to white, you turn it all the way to black until you can't see it, you turn it right in the middle. If there's a color associated with it, great, awesome. You take that, and then all of a sudden you may notice that there's a furnace right next to you. Now, if we use our spectrum of emotion that we have control over, we can use anger. We can use disgust, because we can use those in a destructive way to destroy this fear. So let's use our anger, let's use our disgust to destroy this fear. You're going to take that fear, you're going to slam it in the furnace, and you're going to close the lid, and then you're going to turn it on as hot as you want it. As hot as you want it, till it all burns. Okay? Till that fear all burns. It's in the furnace right now. Then you take the pan, the ash pan, you look at it, then you put it in the trash. You put it in the trash in the most, however you want it, however you would imagine how it feels best to you. You put it in the trash. You wrap it up. You get it nice and tight. You see a field go over there, and then you wind up like one of those professional soccer players. You throw it up in the air and you send it flying. Goes exactly where you want it, into the far distance till you can't even see it. Like in Pokemon, how they would, they'd spiral out of control and then they'd be like a little speck in the distance, right? Same thing. Now, after that, cheer, it's gone. You're high-fiving your friends. Everything that would happen in the soccer games in Europe, something crazy, it's just a lot of fun. Have fun with it. You're imagining, use your imagination, be a kid again, But now, when we come back here, in your room or wherever you did this, you'll notice, where's the fear? Where's the impulse that you were just trying to negate or destroy? It's gone. Because you use your imagination to guide your mind away from that response until you left it on a positive note. And now it's gone. Now there's nothing there. And chances are, if you tried to now exhibit the behavior and gain firsthand knowledge and experience of doing the thing, you would have less resistance, personal resistance. Every time you get that impulse and you do that, it gets less and less and less and less and less. So now you have complete control. Pretty awesome, right? Now, this also plays into the book Habit. It's yellow. I have it some here somewhere, but not right now. But it's kind of like has a um, gerbil wheel or whatever, and has people crawling over it, and it's yellow and it's red, right? It has a red color, yellow color. And so there's the stimulus. They talk about how the stimulus, the process, and the result, right? The reward. Okay? So we have the stimulus, we change the process. So we go into our imagination, we start, and then we dismantle it like that using the furnace, using that analogy, throwing the trash can. That's also a great analogy. Kicking it over the hill, that's a great analogy. You know, you can come up with all sorts of different ways. You can imagine it as a huge boss fight if you really want to have fun with it, and you destroy it at the very end every single time. Great. Perfect. Okay? The result, and then the result changes that we no longer feel the fear because we destroyed it. Obviously, because you experienced it firsthand, and that's how belief is created. You experience it firsthand. Right? You assign new meaning and new path. Then after that, you build something else up, right? You build that knowledge base of what you want. Use the same thing for what you want. You take something that you really love, you really enjoy, that you're really good at, and you do something to augment it. You have a visualization of augmenting it. You visualize yourself on stage as a super amazing musician or something like that, or whatever you wanted. You visualize yourself like that. You think that would, augment those things, so you have closer, you have a more drive towards what you want, and then you're also destroying the things that you don't want anymore. It works both ways. And you know what's even better? Is that if you needed that fear, if you wanted that fear, if you wanted to bring it back for some reason or another, guess what? You can use that same process to bring it back, to keep you safe, to move you towards your objectives. Right? All this stuff is just mental imagery, mental imagination, just having fun, man. Be playful. Just have a blast. If you have a blast making these visualizations, destroying the impulses you don't want anymore, destroying the habits you don't want anymore, and then using it to also create things that, bring things into your life that are great, and then not to mention, you can do this alone when nobody's looking, because I know we all have those feelings like somebody's watching us, somebody's judging us for making right decisions in our life, and that's probably always going to be true. But the thing is that you can shut the door, do this thing in literally 10 seconds, and the fear's gone. Now, do you care so much about what other people think to not take the proper actions and the steps that literally take 10 minutes of probably of a pretty fun experience, destroying something that you really don't want anymore and getting you closer to where you want? I don't think so. Right? So this was basically some techniques on how to destroy an impulse or a feeling that you no longer need anymore, that you know rationally doesn't get you to where you want to go. So, hope you enjoyed. I'd love to hear your comments down below. If some of you have used it, I'd love to hear about it. Peace.